Yeah, so all of this is just to distract and to steal money while we go into the collapse of basically everything. The monetary system, the financial system, all governments are bankrupt. I've already been saying that, but now they're like more than bankrupt. And man, it's getting wild. This has actually been the fourth worst year in the bond market in the last 322 years. Michael Gade says, a bond market crash is infinitely worse than a stock market crash. The US aggregate bond ETF AGG, a proxy for the highest quality bonds, is in a crash. If this continues, we have more to worry about than the value of your portfolios. The end of the world is the bull case. And the gap between the 2-year and 10-year treasury yields has reached the most inverted since the early 1980s. England is still in total collapse. The Japanese yen Japanese government bonds have stopped trading. And now the US Treasury market, Janet Yellen came out. This was like a few days ago. And she said, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. The US financial system's totally fine. The very next day, she says she's worried about liquidity in the Treasury financial markets. This is massive. It's actually the biggest drop in stocks and bonds this year, a Shemitah year, than in 1929, which you may remember was like the big Great Depression. It's actually lower than that. And part of what Ed Bugos has been talking about for months is how the Federal Reserve is like backed into a corner here, and they're going to have to, at some point, basically stop doing their so-called tightening because everything's collapsing now. And this is how all hyperinflations start, by the way. And this is what I wrote about in the newsletter. You should really subscribe. $vigilante.com/subscribe. I wrote all about this. That as things collapse, they just print more and more money. And actually the central banksters along the way, they even said this in the Weimar Republic in Germany. I made this chart like 10 years ago. You can see the economists, as the amount of currency is printed like by tens of thousands of percent more, all they say is we need more money. There's not enough money. That's what they always do. And that's actually what they're saying now as well. This is not QE or QT. This is none of those. Why the US Treasury is exploring debt buybacks. So already, it looks like the Federal Reserve is going to have to buy up a ton of US Treasuries in order to keep the market alive. But they can't call it quantitative easing because they've been saying this whole year that they're not doing that. It's because they have to get rid of inflation. So what they say is this isn't quantitative easing. This is just debt buybacks, which is quantitative easing. It's just a different word for it. Just like when they used Operation Twist like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's pretty amazing. Oh, and speaking of demented presidents, Joe Biden, while eating an ice cream cone, is like, oh, everything's totally fine. The guy can't even read off a teleprompter. Here's him telling people to go to reportfraud.ftc.gov.
If you get any questionable calls, please tell us by going to reportfraud.ftc.gov. Nobody
says DOT. Joe, they probably wrote it out. Joe, don't say DOT, say dot. But he's too far gone now.